Before the arenas, before the awards.
This is b4Nashville Live. Have a question for a guest?
Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
And welcome back to Before Nashville, where we introduce the country stars of tomorrow to the country fans of today. Tonight, joining me, a 19-year-old young woman who has already established herself as a songwriter and playing in iconic venues in Nashville like the Bluebird, which is quite awesome. And we're going to be talking a lot about what's going on in her life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Sam Cary. Sam, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, so glad to have you because we've been trying to get this worked out and things have just we've had hit and miss. You've had shows. We finally got it worked out, which is good. So tell me a little bit about Sam Cary from the beginning.
So I'm from San Diego, California. That's actually where I currently live, but I split time kind of between there, Nashville, and then my family lives in Arizona, so I do a lot of stuff out there too. But I'm a singer-songwriter. I kind of walk the line of Americana and country music. I actually grew up not liking country music, which is kind of crazy because now it's my whole life. And then I had a revelation, and now we're here. So I'm just super excited to be able to share, these pieces of myself and in the space that is country music because it's my home now.
So when did you start singing? I mean, when did you figure out that you had a voice and you could do something with that voice?
It's kind of cliche answer as long as I can remember, but I grew up singing in church, which I think is really common among a lot of people that end up going on to have music careers. But it definitely helped me. It put me in front of a crowd and you have that comfort because church feels so much like a family. So, it's not terrifying. And they really teach you, all about music in its many different forms. So I grew up singing there. And at first I wanted to be, anything but a singer. I wanted to be a doctor or a writer or an astronaut or something. Right. But when I started writing my own music, I realized that, wait, this is really special. And if I'm doing this, I got to be sharing it with people. And if I'm sharing it with people, then I'm pursuing this crazy career. So it kind of just snowballed from there and I didn't look back. So
how old were you when you wrote your very first song?
That's kind of there's kind of multiple answers because the first song I wrote had I didn't play guitar or anything on it. It was just lyrics and a melody. So that was probably around 9. And then the first song I wrote to an actual, track with me playing guitar and things like that was around 13.
Wow. So you, between 9 and 13, did you pick up the guitar? Because you do play, right?
Yeah, so I picked up the guitar. I had actually gone out to Nashville. I'd begged my grandma to take me to the Grille Opry, and then we also went to Graceland in Memphis. And when I saw everyone in Nashville, playing their own music, playing guitars, little 13-year-old me was like, I got to do that. So I went home and immediately bought an acoustic guitar. So
wow, that is awesome. So as you're growing up and you're getting into the music and you're starting to enjoy it, you're getting up in school. What are your friends thinking about? I mean, when you started gigging out and stuff, what did your friends think about that?
They thought it was all really cool. I think it was always a little weird, because it's different. Most kids are just doing kid things, going to football games and prom and stuff. And I did all that. So it definitely had a normal experience, but also on days I wasn't doing normal school things, because I also ran competitive cross country and track. So that was a very big part of my life too. But when I wasn't doing any of that, I was actually playing residencies at local venues and, traveling back and forth to Nashville. So it was definitely oh, where's Sam? Oh, wait, she's in Nashville this week. And it's kind of funny. So I kind of got to live Hannah Montana, 2 lives. So
right. So you don't live in Nashville, but you split your time between San Diego and Nashville.
Yes. Yeah.
And San Diego is not exactly known as a country music hub.
No, it's not. So Riverside County, which is kind of north of San Diego, actually has an amazing country music scene. There's so many venues. There's a huge community that I actually got to be introduced to when I was in high school called the West Coast Country Music Association. And they really fostered country music in young individuals up there. So that was great. But you're right. San Diego itself is very much indie or alternative music, surf rock. So surprisingly, it was kind of weird to navigate what country music looks like in that scene. But for me, I'm super blessed. I have my band out there. I have my family. And there's this part that I romanticize about, like, if you look back, California actually did have influence in country with Bakersfield Sound. And even in like Southern rock and rock with the Eagles, they spent a lot of time out there.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to bring some of that back to California instead of just jumping into Nashville like everyone else and trying
Right.
to sink or swim. I was like, well, why don't I build a fan base out here, which is the place that even gave me the platform to begin with. And I bring that to Nashville, but proactively, if that makes sense. So,
Right. Right. So you, of course, you've had to have influences somewhere
mhm.
along the line, singing, writing, all that stuff. Who are some of your musical influences, the singers?
Singers, Chris Stapleton is my all-time favorite influence. I just love that when he sings, you actually feel it like in your
Yeah.
bones. It's an experience, not just something that's nice to listen to. So he's my all-time. I grew up with the vocal powerhouses of like Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert, Martina McBride, which are all great, but I would say now they're not really my influences sonically. It just kind of helped me fall in love with the genre.
Right.
Um, so I really love like soulful voices, which is why I gravitate towards Chris Stapleton. And I loved the Civil Wars back when they were doing their thing in the
Yeah.
genre. And I kind of like to create my own sound. So I have all these influences, whether they're country, rock, Americana, pop, blues. And I just like fuse them together into something that's super authentic to me.
Right.
So definitely the more soulful voices. Right now, I really like Casey Ashton. She has an awesome voice.
Mhm.
And songwriting wise, there's just so many greats, whether or not they've written hits or they're just up and coming. I have so many influences. You look at Nashville, they're everywhere. So
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, in Nashville, and as bad as I mean, I don't like, a friend of mine once said, and I don't like to use it that often, but in Nashville, there's so many artists, so many songwriters. You're kind of a small fish in a big pond.
it's true. It's true.
Uh, but you have to make a name for yourself, and you've been able to do that. And I mean, one of the things that I love about you, because I've been like just absolutely addicted to your music here about
Thank
the
you.
last, well, since we first talked, I've
Yeah,
listened to everything you
thank
put
you.
up. And you just put up a new song, which is the name of the title track off the album, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Was listening to it really close today. I got to say, the song we're going to play is just floors me. I mean, I
Thank you.
there's nothing about that song, from your vocal style all the way up to the production, which is very kind of a non-Nashville type of production, honestly. So you were able to mesh all that together. Now, did you have any kind of formal music training, be it voice or any classes or anything? Because you've really, I mean, I'm not saying that most people that are in this business don't know what they're talking about, but you are very knowledgeable about music, like, talking about the sonic feel and that kind of stuff.
So I grew up in musical theater, which I think had a lot to do with like me falling in love with becoming a performer.
Okay.
But I did vocal lessons from probably middle of elementary school to the end of high school. So that was also huge in me finding like my authenticity, because you can sing other people's songs all the time and you can sound absolutely great. But I think there's something about, like diving into your own sound. What about my specific voice and what comes out of me makes it like unique, right? And I think
Right.
that's how you can kind of start becoming an artist, not just a
Mhm.
singer. So for me, that was really important. And I had some really great coaches along the way to help me kind of, just embrace that. So I did have some formal music training. I also go to Berklee College of Music via online. So I get some really great mentors through there as well. And I'm a student of the industry and a student of the craft. So I always want to learn more and about the industry and about, why this record worked and why that one didn't, and find ways to put that into my own music, but still have it be authentic to me.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, like I said, that is one of the things that, from listening to your songs, it's just, I gotta say, when I was first listening, and this today when I was driving home, I had you on because I'm like, okay, I need to
Aw,
kind of brush up, and
yeah.
Seven Nation Army came on, and I'm going, check her out. She's doing White Stripes, and I
Yeah.
was kind of like turning it up a little bit. I think I had it all the way up in the truck driving down the
Yay.
interstate.
Yes. Yay.
And the windows may have been down, and then I get into town. I had to make a stop on the way into town, and I still had it cranked up. And I think I kind of digitally rewound it back to the beginning. And I was like, people were looking at me, and I'm going, hey, her name's Sam Cary. Just go check it out. Okay.
Yeah,
Don't look at me
check
like
it
that.
out.
Just go check it out. But when I first heard that, the cover of that song, I was like, wow. And your voice just fits it so well because Seven Nation Army, it was kind of a darker, being from the White Stripes, and it was kind of a darker, eclectic type song, alt rock type thing. And you slayed that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
That was a kind of an experiment. Like my producer, when we were creating, we hadn't even gone in being like, we're going to do singles or an album or whatever. We just were like, we're going to create and whatever comes out, comes out. And he said, you know what? I like to challenge my artists to pick a song that they love to cover in their live set and change it, like restructure it, put it in different key, do whatever, to make it different. Because covers in a way, like, yes, it's not original music, but if you do a cover correctly, it's so like badass. You know what I mean? It's like super cool. So I was like, well, I do Seven Nation Army, and I showed it to him, and he was like, whoa, that's super cool, because it was way more, I think it's slowed down, and it's more bluesy, and it's just a completely different vibe than Jack White, and I love Jack White stuff, but I wanted to honor that, but also if I had written the song and I had done it and produced it, how would I do it? And so it was super cool. I got to work with some amazing session musicians, and I'm super proud of that one. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, you did it great. Have you got to meet Jack White or go to the studio?
No.
I mean, is that like a dream to record in his Nashville studio?
Yeah, because he has Third Man Records in Nashville. And one of my goals is while promoting the album. So obviously Seven Nation Army is not going to be on my album because just for like licensing reasons. I got the licensing when I put it out the first time, but I wanted to keep that more original. But it's still part of my journey. So while promoting everything, my goal is like, I want Jack White to see this. Like, he's got to see this, like whether it's through YouTube or social media, TikTok, like we're going to make this happen. I just want him to see it. I don't even care if he likes it. He just got to see it. So
yeah, you're going to have to do a TikTok and tag him in it and see.
Yes.
I don't even know if he's on TikTok.
I don't think he is. I think I tried that and he wasn't even on TikTok. So I'm like, how is he going to see this? But we got to try. It's going to happen.
You may have to go back to the old days of Nashville and just walk in there with a CD or a flash drive and say, hey, here's my version of Seven Nation Army. I just did it on a whim, so I want you to listen to it and give me
you never know. Somehow it's going to happen. It's my goal.
He could break out a contract, have it at his desk right there and go, I want to sign you to the record label.
You never know. You never know. Nashville is kind of magical like that. So
yes, it is. It very much is. So with going back and forth between Nashville and San Diego, of course, Nashville is kind of more where your heart lies.
Yeah.
But how often do you go back and forth?
I was trying to go a couple times a year. It was hard when I was still in school, because school. But I would try to go a couple times a year, and then the pandemic happened, so everything was closed. It's like it's not even worth it to go out there right now. Everything's shut down. So I'm actually going back out in a couple of weeks for the first time in over a year, which is crazy because the pandemic and everything. But I was going a couple times a year, recording, writing. This time I'm really excited because I feel like I said, I'm putting out an album, a record. It's a 7-song record in September. Well, it is September 17th. And I feel like I'm almost like closing a chapter, even though it's starting a chapter for everyone else because this is the first time they're hearing it. It's kind of like closing one for me because when I go back out to Nashville, it's going to be like embarking on this new musical journey. Like where am I going to go next with the songs? Because this last collection of songs was, from a different chapter of going out to Nashville. So we'll see what happens.
Right. So are you constantly writing, or do you just like take spurts where you write?
I'm constantly writing. And one thing I loved, there's always silver linings with everything. So one thing I actually gained from the pandemic was getting to meet a lot of Nashville writers and write through Zoom, which actually has worked out great. So we've been writing a lot. I write a lot on my own. I write with my home band. It kind of just depends. As long as my brain is going, the songs don't really stop. So I'm always writing something.
So how many dates do you say that you play a year?
Right now it's different because, obviously 2020, it was like none. So now since May, we did a full 2-week tour in Arizona. We did a Northern California tour, and a bunch of like home shows, or at least like 2 hours from home shows.
Right.
In between, we're about to go up to the Sequoias in California this coming weekend. I leave tomorrow. So it kind of just depends. I haven't actually sat down and counted them yet because I just get them added, constantly. So at the end of the year, I'll be able to have a better metric.
Right. And I know the pandemic kind of, I mean, it messed up everybody's schedule. So it kind of throws off. If you kind of started doing the stuff in 2019 or 2020, then you just like, you're like, well, I can't work out those because I didn't get anything, nobody got anything. And everybody was shut down. Did you do Zoom writing during that time?
Yes, a couple of Zoom writes. I actually got connected with some great people at ASCAP. They got me connected with some more like Nashville songwriters because I'd been writing with people in Nashville when I'd go out to Nashville, but a lot of my connections were on the West Coast. So now being able to write with kind of anyone, anywhere, at any time is awesome because of technology. So Zoom has been a blessing for sure.
I think that's one of the things that Nashville adapted to. That was a good thing for them to do because, like you say, even when when there wasn't a pandemic, sometimes it was hard. It could be hard for you to get to Nashville to do a write.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, you use the Zoom thing to kind of make it easier on you and on the other writer. It takes away a little bit of the chemistry and the feel, but you're still writing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one cool thing is that it was easier to break into certain circles in Nashville of writers because you think like before the pandemic, before Zoom, a lot of people write with a lot of people that are already, they're local, they're close, it's easier.
Right.
With Zoom, everyone's writing from home anyway. So it was able to help me meet a lot of new people and network and have it not be an issue that I was far away. So that was super cool. And then as far as like the chemistry, I've been super blessed that because with some of these writes, it's the first time I ever met these people in person. Well, not even in person, through Zoom, met them in general. I didn't really know any different. So just making the most of the Zoom write was what we had to do. So when I finally do get to meet them in person, it will be even cooler. Like it will exceed my expectations. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Now, how much has social media played a part in where you are right now? Because I follow you on your social media and I keep up with it, and especially Instagram and TikTok. I don't follow Facebook as much anymore. I'm an old guy and I use it, but I'm trying to fit in with a younger crowd, figure this stuff out. How much has that played a role in what you do day to day?
So social media is like my personal worst enemy. I think kind of one of the things is like I've got the content, I've got the connections. It's just about how do I translate that into social media growth and everything. So social media definitely every day, posting something, trying to keep up with it. But a lot of my like fans that I've actually made that like are kind of more like cult followers of my music, I met in person. At shows, on the ground, signing autographs, doing radio tour, things like that, which I love, because it's more of that like real connection instead of just like a digital fan or like, oh, they find my music, they like it, but like they'll listen to it a few times and then forget because they'll see the next thing that pops up on their feed. So Obviously trying to grow the social media is very, very important because unfortunately in today's society, numbers do matter. But I think balancing it and not forgetting that there are real people, out there at
Right.
shows, people on the other side of the screens, finding ways to balance the connection between both. So
Right.
yeah.
Now, one of the things you mentioned was meeting people face to face and
Mhm.
making that connection with your fans.
Yeah.
And of course, COVID played a part in that because when you're just, you're getting into the swing of things and really starting to get out, radio tours were shut down. And
Mhm.
for people that may be watching or listening that don't know, radio tours are where an artist will basically hop in their vehicle and they'll drive to radio stations from one side of the country to another, and they'll do interviews and they'll sing and just kind of present themselves
Yep. Mhm.
to people. And I saw a couple of pictures where you were on a radio tour, and you had a guitar player with you.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
she's in your band,
Yeah, she
uh,
is.
and so you guys were like going across country. And I think
Mhm.
the picture I saw may have been in an Arizona radio station.
Arizona. Yeah, it was in Page, Arizona, which is like at the border of Utah and
Okay.
Arizona. So that was super cool experience. I've done a couple of things with radio, but post pandemic, or I guess we're still in it, but wherever we are in the pandemic,
Right.
I that was the first time I was able to actually go in for physical interview, because a lot of it's over the phone or like what we're doing right now, or call-ins to this or live stream here. And it was cool to actually get to sit at the desk with the microphone, talk to the people, and like see them and see the whole process. And just then I had a show that night, and everyone in that small town and also in Utah too, on the other side of the border, had heard it. So they came to the show, and it was just like so refreshing after a year of just like kind of just depressingness,
Right.
um, to be able to be like, oh my gosh, I heard you this morning. And you're like, oh, this is like the coolest thing ever. And now we're here and we're sharing in this music and this great barbecue, because there was barbecue at the venue. And
Right.
it just felt like family, it felt really, really good. And I'm glad that we're finally able to do those things again.
Well, and when you're, I mean, your shows, I had to get back on my train of thought right there because I almost missed my last ticket stop. But when like your shows, have you been able to do, because a lot of artists will do festivals and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Have you got to do any of those?
There were a couple that were maybe supposed to happen, but with COVID in California in particular, because we're one of the strictest states,
Right.
some things didn't pan out. But I did get to do some like I guess we don't really have a state fair, but we have big county fairs in California. So I got to do some of those bigger outside events.
Right.
A lot of a lot of just like local venues right now. And actually, we're looking at 2022 is going to be where we get to do a lot more festivals. So that will be really exciting. We're communicating with a couple different exciting people right now, but
All right.
um, didn't get to do as many this summer. We kind of just did more like grassroots touring, stopping through a bunch of different cities and doing just like local venue kind of things.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So, you've got the album coming out before long, and the song that is being, I guess, sent out to radio is the song "Bitter."
That
Um,
one was
is that
already sent out to radio.
okay? So you've got a new one out now.
Mhm.
Is "Ungodly Hour" the one that's going out now? No,
So
another one.
so the album is like accumulation of the singles that I put out in late 2020 and 2021. And
Right.
then there's a couple extras. So Ungodly Hours was a single that had actually kind of started the train of everything that we're working on. And it felt really all encompassing of what the album meant to me. And the sonically, it's very much like I like to think of the album starting with like a sunset and ending with a sunrise.
Okay.
I don't know if that will make sense when people listen to it, but it makes sense to me. So Ungodly Hours just kind of felt like really encompassing of the whole vibe of the album. It's a little
Right.
darker. There are a few like more uplifting tracks, but overall it's a little
Right.
bit darker. So that one's already out, but well, we're doing this interview right now, but I do have a track dropping tomorrow, actually. And it's going to be kind of like a surprise release. And it's one of the tracks on the album that hasn't come out yet. And it's to promote the album. And it's one of my favorite tracks off the album. That one is actually called Vampire. So I'm super excited about that one. And I think people are going to find it pretty interesting because it's all metaphorical, but it's about the music industry. So we'll see what happens with that one. Yeah.
And I think you put a little clip of that on one of your social media because I know I heard part of it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The one we're going to play tonight is Bitter, and that's the one that you had already released to radio.
Yes.
And I'm going to play it and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the backstory and stuff like that because out of all, I can't say I have a absolute favorite because they're all kind of right there as favorites. I really like them all, but this one there's just so many questions I have about this song. I have to tell you, because just from listening to it. So we're going to get into that and we'll play that and give folks a listen. Before we do that, just to let you know, we're being brought to you by Go-Go Tuners. They proudly sponsor b4Nashville, and they're the go-to tuner of professionals and amateur musicians alike. They were started by a bunch of pros who said, we got to find an easier tuner. And they have a great technology, green you're in, red you're out. You can, it's easy to tune your guitar with these tuners. They're just amazing. They have floor models. They have headstock models. Check them out at gogotuners.com. So now we're going to get into Bitter, and this is Sam Cary on b4Nashville, where we introduce the country stars of tomorrow to the country fans of today.
Tried to forgive, but baby, my forgiveness won't fix the things you did. I guess it is what it is, but it's easier to say that than to walk away from this. Ooh. See, I've tried to forget, but what if I don't want to let you go just yet? They say we can't live with regret, and don't let stupid boys go leave your heart a mess. Why can't you let me be better? 'Cause right now I don't feel like feeling better. Everybody tells me get it together, but right now I just want to feel better. Ooh. I could lie to myself, say I just move on and find anybody else. They all tried to tell me I'd be alright, but I just wanna sit here in my sorrow tonight. Why can't you let me be better? 'Cause right now I don't feel like feeling better. Everybody tells me get it together, but right now I just want to feel better. And right now I just want to feel better. Why can't you let me be better? 'Cause right now I don't feel like feeling better.
Now that was about 3 minutes of pure, unadulterated soul right there.
Thank you.
You, um, there's so many things running through my mind on that song. Um, I'm gonna lay it out there. First off, your voice. I've never heard a voice like yours in my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
The closest that you come there was, and I don't know that I'm going to date myself here. Back in the 80s, there was an artist named Kate Bush, and she did a song called Running Up That Hill. And your voice is so close to the way her sounds, just the tone and the richness of it.
Thank you.
And that was, I was in radio back then. That's how old I am and how long I've been in radio. And that was one of my favorite songs to play. When that song came up on the playlist, I'm like, yeah, I get to play it, you know? and and then I go back to what you said earlier about the album, about how you wanted it to be kind of a sunset to sunrise type of album.
Mhm.
And with that thought in my mind, I've listened to the song, and you did that in that one song because you start off just kind of, in that slow, uh, even tone, and then it builds up at the end. So it's like, you've got the downtime of the sunset where people are just relaxing and, you know, getting over their day. And then by the end of it, it's like the sun's up, it's time to go again,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, man, I've not heard the whole album, but if the whole album is like the one song, you definitely accomplished what you wanted to do.
Thank you.
Um, the biggest, absolute biggest thing I love about it, I thought the acoustic, that starts out, and then you got the slide and the slide dobro in there is what it
Mhm.
sounds to me like,
It was, yeah.
and it's just phenomenal.
Thank
I
you.
have to give you credit for the fact that you, as a young artist, have something like that in a song like that. I mean, this song it could go on a pop station,
Yeah,
just like
definitely.
it is, you know,
Mhm.
and or it can be played on country. I mean, it's kind of you and Ingrid Andress need to get together and write songs because y'all are
Yes.
great together.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, I kind of walk this line. I was in an ASCAP meeting not that long ago, and someone told me they're like, like I don't really know what you are, but like in a good way. They were saying is like you kind of just walk
Right,
this line. I was like, that's the goal for me because A, if you don't sound like anyone else, you're doing something right because it's new.
right,
And then also too, it's just kind of special because it feels again just really true to myself and I can not kind of pigeonhole myself into one genre. Like I love country music with my whole heart, but
mhm.
the ability to be able to make fans that are in other genres and just have them love me for the artist I am, not for the genre I represent, is would be the coolest thing.
Oh yeah, I mean that song right there. I'm serious. I've it's in my top 10 favorite songs right now
Thank
that
you.
either are or are not on the radio because I listen to a lot of songs that aren't on the
Mhm.
radio right now with the podcast. And I mean, like I said, just your voice and the smoothness. And if you close your eyes and you're not looking at a picture of Sam Cary, there's nobody in the world that would ever think that you were, 19, 20 years old. I think you
Yeah.
just turned 20.
Yeah, I'm 20 now. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
I mean, and nobody would ever think you were 20 years old. Listening to the feel of the song, I mean, you talked about Stapleton and how he brings people into his songs,
Mhm.
you feel it. And with that song, that's exactly what you did. I mean, I was feeling it.
Thank you.
And I'm going to let you see this real quick. Um,
Oh,
Thomas he's manages an artist that, and I've known Tom for a few years, and he's on here, and that was what he said about that.
oh, thank you, Thomas. I love that.
So
That means a lot.
he's an amazing guy, and he knows what he's talking about, which is so cool. And I can see this being one of those age gap songs. People in their 20s would love it. People up
Yeah,
to 50s, 60s would love it.
definitely.
just because it's got that feel. Where did the song come from? Because I'm going to step out on a limb and say it sounds to me like somebody had a little bit of an issue with a guy.
Kind of. So it's actually really interesting because the story that the song is inspired by and then the actual writing of the song are very disconnected, but still important pieces to why that song ever existed.
Uh-huh.
So when I was in Nashville back in 2019, I'd been working with my producer. His name's Billy Smiley, and we actually, on a chance meeting, had met this guitarist who now lives in LA, but he done a lot of stuff in the Christian music sphere. His name's Alex Williams. He's amazing. I love him to death. And he actually co-wrote Ungodly Hours with me too. But we had just finished Ungodly Hours and we had time left in our write. We ended up writing 2 songs in one session, which was amazing. But we turned to him and we're like, hey, Alex, like, why don't you play something that is more authentic to you and the kind of music you like? And he comes from an R&B. I think some of his influences were like Tori Kelly-esque music, singer-songwriter, R&B, gospel influences. And he starts playing that, what you hear on the acoustic, that little riff in the beginning. And he actually played on the track. And I didn't really know what I wanted to write about when he started playing that, but I got this progression in my head and the whole concept of why can't you let me be bitter? Because right now I don't feel like feeling better, which I loved that like play on the bitter versus better. And it took me back to a moment earlier in the year where I had my first major breakup, and it was mutual. It wasn't a devastating breakup by any means, but it was confusing to me emotionally because I was like, what the heck? Like, I don't want to be like, just move on with my life, but I'm also not like devastated, but I kind of am bitter, like this is over. It was such a weird feeling. And a family friend of mine said, you know what, like instead of trying to figure out what this emotion is and trying to get over it fast and or crying every day or whatever that may be, she's like, just let yourself feel it. Like, feel it, acknowledge that you're feeling it, don't let anyone tell you you have to feel differently, and then it will all just work itself out. And that's exactly what happened. And that conversation kind of inspired me in the right of like, nah, I don't need to justify my emotions. I'm feeling bitter and I'm going to let myself feel bitter.
Right.
And it's going to be okay. And by the time I wrote the song, I mean, I was so far over that whole situation. But the song was a way for me to kind of like re-tap into the emotions I had felt at the time. And I knew that if I felt them, other people had felt them. And there's this pressure by even our friends and loved ones, oh, get over him. He wasn't worth it. You're so much better. Let's go out and party or whatever, right? But what if you just want to sit in your room and be mad? Like, you're allowed to feel like that, like at least for a day. You don't have to pretend to be okay.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's I could tell. I mean, I'm like you. I love the line in there where it said, I don't want to be better. I just want to feel better.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about, coming up here in a week, you've got something really huge.
Yeah.
Because Ungodly Hours, the album, is going to be the focus of an album release party.
Yes. Super excited for that. So if you're in Southern California, definitely come out to this. We're going to be playing at a venue that's pretty well known in the Southern California area. It's called the Temecula Stampede. They actually just hosted a big music festival in like coordination with their venue this summer that had like Billy Ray Cyrus and I can't remember who. Oh, the band Perry was there, some other artists. So they're definitely making a name for themselves as a venue, but we're going to be there on September 12th. It's an all ages event and we're going to be celebrating the album. So the album comes out on the 17th, but it's a pre-release party. So the physical copy is available, kind of behind the songs is going to be a huge part of the set. Kind of just celebrating it with family, friends, and fans. So I'm super excited.
Right. So, on your streaming, because That's generally the way I listen on the way home,
Mhm.
because I like to hear a lot of stuff that you've had out, and you've got, like I said, Seven Nation Army, and you've got Bitter, but then Ungodly Hours, the title tracks on
Yeah.
there. Tell me a little bit about that song.
So Ungodly Hours is my coming of age song. I like to think of it as like a film reel. When I write, I'm a very visual writer. I kind of see the story, see the music video, see the characters while I'm writing the song, which is kind of interesting. Um, and I had just graduated high school or was about to graduate high school. And, teenagers get themselves into trouble sometimes. It's not unheard of. I like to think I was a pretty good teenager, but not everyone that I knew in my life was.
Right.
And so I was just being honest with the fact of like what I'm seeing going on around me. And some things I'm partaking in, some things I'm not. But um nonetheless, it's very all encompassing of like nostalgia and coming of age and being young. And I just started writing about it, and this song kind of just fell out of me. And I remember bringing it to my producer and my family, and I was nervous at first because I was like, ooh, I don't like want people to think I'm like glamorizing the things I'm talking about in the songs.
Right.
But it's honest to like what a lot of people, have experienced in their life, being a young person, getting themselves into trouble, maybe doing things that in 20 years they'll look back at and be like, that's stupid. But it was all part of their life and their story. And I think every single person, regardless of your upbringing, has one moment in that song they could look back at and kind of chuckle to themselves and be like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that brings up this memory. So that's kind of how that song came about, was just observation of people around me and my life and where I lived and things like that. And I'm really proud of that song. It kind of kickstarted the rest of the songs I ended up writing in that year as well. And kind of also for me directionally, sonically was really cool because I kind of figured out more so what sound I wanted to go for. And it just, the whole idea of like the nighttime, like the sunset to sunrise, like mischief in the night, again, kind of just encapsulates the whole album. So it felt really fitting to put it as a title track.
Right. It's a great song too. I'm super excited because I cannot wait to hear this album. I got to be honest with you, because I'm a fan. I'm not just a guy on the podcast that wanted to interview. When I first heard Bitter, I got to be honest, because your management company had sent me some other artists that they managed, and I can't remember where I heard Bitter. I heard it somewhere, and at that point, your name had not even come into the conversation. And so as soon as I hear it, I'm like, I tell my wife, I said, I've got my studios down in my basement. I'm like, I'm going down to the studio. And she goes, why? I said, I have got to send an email right now. And I emailed your management company. I'm like, I have got to have Sam on.
Oh,
I mean, I just had to, because I was just that, I guess, enamored with the song. I mean, like I said, just, it was one of those that I'm very much in tune with listening to the instrumentation and the vocals and what are the little, intricacies and the little nuances that may be not there in another song,
yeah.
I don't even think in country music that I could put you like, say, you sound like this person, or you remind me of that person. Not that you
That's
sound
honestly
like
the best compliment, though. I love that so much because it
And-
means I'm doing something new,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
and I could not. I mean, I even tried to think, and I thought, I really no. There's nobody writes like you. Nobody has that. I mean, you are like an old soul. Your voice sounds like it was like you were reincarnated from an old blues soul singer.
Oh, thank you.
And so I'm just like, man alive. So I had to get you on, and so I'm excited to absolutely hear this new album.
I'm so
cannot wait
excited for people to hear it because I've been sitting on it for what feels like forever.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you are. And I'm not trying to take your thunder away there, because I mean, you got to be more excited than I am. It's your brainchild. It's your baby, and
Yeah.
something that you put your heart and soul into.
it doesn't even feel real, honestly, because like you write these songs, in your bedroom, and then you go to Nashville and you record them. And I got to record at Rascal Flatts studio, and that was amazing to think that like the songs that started in my bedroom then ended up there, and now we're ending up in people's living rooms on their stereo or on their phone or in their car. It's just like it's the weirdest thing in the world, but the most beautiful, honestly.
Oh yeah. And if you ever come out, I'm a big vinyl guy. I love
Yes.
vinyl.
Yes.
If you come out with a vinyl on this, I will be there.
I want to do a limited vinyl run. The color scheme for my album is like blue and gray.
Right.
So I want to do actually a colored vinyl because I'm going to only do a few copies. So I'm working on that right now.
I'll have to keep my eye open for that so I don't miss them, because I definitely want that on.
Maybe I'll reserve one just for you.
Yeah, I mean, with the smoothness of the way it sounds digitally, and then just to me, the smoothness of vinyl, it's I'm going to have my new speakers. It's probably going to melt them. I mean, it'll just be that good. I'm telling you right now. So I'm super excited.
Thank you.
So what are you looking forward to in the next, say, 6 months? I mean, what do you, beside the album coming out? I mean, that's the biggest thing, I'm sure. What are you expecting you're going to be doing in the next 6 months?
So a lot of exciting things are kind of on the horizon for 2022. I don't want to like say it yet because I don't know for fact like all the details or what's going to pan out, what's not.
Okay.
But super excited for a lot of shows over there in 2022. I might have the opportunity to go overseas in 2022 and play some shows. So working on that. I'm currently partnered with a booking agency overseas in Europe. So hopefully something will come of that. And then obviously the album, going back out to Nashville and just working on new music, because like I've had all these brain children in my phone and my voice memos, but they need to be in the studio. And I could do it at home, but there's something so magical about Nashville that like it's just really special to go out there and record. So excited about that. What else? Hopefully some, after the album releases, hopefully some other singles, or at least a new single post the album will be really cool. Music videos I'm working on, just all the regular stuff, but it's also exciting to me. And I've been writing with some really cool people in Nashville, so maybe even a duet from one of my writers. We don't know yet. It will be.
Wow.
Well, time will tell.
Oh, I want to be a fly on the wall in your manager's office to hear all this stuff.
I swear.
You're keeping some secrets, and I want to know these secrets, girl. I'm telling you right now.
I swear, all my phone calls with her, I'm like just spewing out information about like, okay, now I want to do this, and now I have this video idea and this and that, and like I'm full of energy. So sometimes I feel bad for the people I'm trying to communicate with, because I'm like, now I see this in my head, but how do I explain it to you?
Right.
So all of that is super exciting, and I love my job. That's like the best part of this, is like it's just so fun for me. Even answering emails, like it feels like Christmas morning every day, going into my inbox and being like, oh, this opportunity, or this, let me reach out to this person, because you really never know what could be next when you're a young independent artist.
Oh yeah.
And I love it so much. So 2022 is going to be really fun for sure. I'm really excited, and the rest of 2021. But we're coming up on the holidays, so I have a feeling some things gig wise might slow down a little bit, at least for the holidays.
I'll talk to you about this comment that just popped up when we get off, because I kind of feel like a proud papa right now. I'll be honest with you about that one comment. I'm not going to lie to you. You'll find out when we talk. So here's a question I love to ask every artist. Okay. And it's kind of a mirrored question. Okay. Keep that in mind when I ask it, because it's two parts. And this is, I give my wife props for this. This is courtesy of my lovely wife. She came up with this question. And the first part of it is fairly easy for most artists. Okay. If you could tour with anybody in 2022,
okay,
who would that be?
Ooh. I just gotta go with like my love, Chris Stapleton. Just gotta go. That's been my answer since I was 15. It may not even like sonically be the best match, but I just like if I got to see him play every night and I got to play before that, that would just make my whole year. So Chris Stapleton, sure.
I could honestly see that show. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really could. Um, Now the other side of that, to mirror the question, but kind of a like an Alice in Wonderland type thing,
Yeah,
the other side of the looking glass. You're going out on a worldwide tour
yeah,
and you get to hand pick who your opener is.
yeah.
Who would that be?
If I'm going on a worldwide tour, ooh, it's hard because I know a lot of like up and coming musicians
Mhm.
here and in Nashville that are just like so good. And like my own personal relationships with them, I feel like is part of that. Um, oh my gosh, this one, you're right, this is a weird question and it's hard to answer. Um, there's this guy that I met recently in California. And when I heard him sing, like we were at some event or something. And when I heard him sing, I honestly was like, that's got to be one of the best like male vocals I've ever heard. And he doesn't even have a huge following, but it would be my honor if I'm doing a worldwide tour to like bring him with
Mhm.
me. Because also, I would just want him on stage to like compliment my voice because that's like epic too.
Right.
His name, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess it up, so let me look it up real fast because I don't want to mess it up. It's Aaron Nichols. He's local to San Diego, and I wanted him to open for my party, but he was busy, unfortunately, that day. So he's amazing. He sounds like an old like blues artist as well. I love him. So and I've only met him a few times, but that one like experience, where I saw him live was enough for me to be like, okay, I think he did Tennessee Whiskey, and my whole band, we were like, are we watching Chris Stapleton right now? Like, what the
Right.
heck? It's insane. So, yeah, definitely he's amazing. And then there's this other band in San Diego. They're actually bigger than I am right now, but in a perfect situation, I would definitely want them on the road with me because I love everyone in their band and they're amazing. And they're called the Morgan Lee Band. They're front ran by a female singer who I've known for a good amount of time. I want to say like almost 10 years. And then they have like, it's like a trio is like their main brand. They have a banjo player, an acoustic guitarist, Paul and Ruel, and they're just like the nicest, coolest humans ever. And so being on the road with them would be fun too.
Right, right. Now, your management. Now, I got to say this because I think your management company has sent me a lot of artists from
Yeah.
California.
Mhm.
I mean, there, and I got to say, there are so many great young female now, and the reason I emphasize female right now
Mhm.
is because of the big thing about country radio. Happened a couple of years ago, the
Yeah.
salad thing, where women were the tomatoes and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and all that. Um, but I love the fact that that I mean, there's so many young female artists coming out of California that are just phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've interviewed a couple. Kylie Trout's one,
Love her. She's great.
Lane Lanero.
She's
Uh,
from Louisiana, I think.
is she
Lane.
from Louisiana? I thought she
Yeah.
was from California.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're
she
in the same
is from
city.
Louisiana. You're right. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know why I thought she was from California. Maybe she has
Kylie is
that
though.
Cali vibe. That's what it is. She just has that vibe.
Yeah.
But Kylie is one of my favorites.
I
I
love her.
love her
She's
to
great.
death. We've actually had to have her on a couple of times because something went wrong, and so she came back on. She was so sweet about it, and just to hear her sing is just phenomenal. You guys would do great on a, kind of like a
A joint tour or something.
yeah. I'm trying to come up with some kind of like the Women of Nashville thing,
Yeah.
but do it with California. And
It's so
I,
cool.
I don't know, like, county wise, I don't know California that well. My mom lived out there for 20 something years, but I don't know. She lived
Yeah.
in Modesto.
She's Southern California, like me. I think she lives like half an hour from where I live. But we actually grew up in the same kind of musical sphere. Like when I was talking about Riverside, she was one of the first people that was introduced to out there. So she's great. Love her. Go check out her stuff for sure. But
Yeah. Oh,
there's
absolutely.
so many good artists out there. I don't know if you know who Christy Huff is. She's an LA-based country artist. Honey County, they're doing great things right now. Yeah, the sky's kind of the limit. And I like it because, you know, if we all just left California, then where would the country music be in California? Like someone's got to hold down the fort, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
cool.
And one of the fun things, because I know an older guy in California, his name's Dave Herrera. Have you heard of Dave?
Sounds really familiar. Really
the first song he wrote and that he put out, he just dropped a new one. But the first one was called Visiting Nashville. And it kind of when we were talking and I told him, I said, it kind of reminded me of the band Lynn, Don't Take My Sunshine.
Yeah.
Kind of that beboppy kind of, you know, but it was about Nashville and it was really cool. And he wrote it after he'd never been to Nashville. So he wrote it after his first trip. So it was really cool.
That's cool.
And he's kind of that more, you know, not as serious sounding. He's serious about his music, but his songs are not, you know, the ones I've heard so far. Dave, please don't get mad at me when I say this, but they're not like the super heartfelt, you know, they're more fun. That's what he does. He's kind of more, you know, his new one's called Hella Country, and it's really good too. And but there's so much talent, and it's so amazing because, you know, years ago people used to think, well, if you ain't in Nashville, you ain't country.
Yeah.
You know?
And they thought if you were in California, you definitely weren't country.
Right. Right. So, I mean, but, you know, look at one of the biggest guys in even classic country was, now I don't know if he was full time from California, but he owns a radio station there, and that would be Buck Owens. I mean, who doesn't know Buck Owens?
I know, exactly. Like I said, Bakersfield Sound was so influential. Also too, like, because I spent a lot of time in Arizona this summer, and I love myself Arizona because my parents live there. It's like my guilty pleasure to go over there. But I mean, look, Dierks Bentley, I'm pretty sure was from the Phoenix area. I know they have Whiskey Row in Nashville. They have like 4 Whiskey Rows in Phoenix. And so, I mean, that's not California, but it's pretty close. So we've got a lot of great talent out here on the West Coast for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm learning more and more about it. And I really like that because I think there's just, you know, country it's kind of like Brantley Gilbert said, you know, country, it's not must be, country is countrywide now. I mean, everybody, you know, you've got the big festivals in California to Michigan to Florida and all around where people, I mean, thousands upon thousands of people go.
Yeah.
You know, and they just listen to great country music for 2-3 days at a time, if not longer.
Yeah, you look at Keith Urban. I mean, he's from Australia. And he's an amazing, like, huge influential person in country music. I like to think that, like, country music isn't, you don't have to be from the South or have this thick accent. Now, I mean, it does, like, help, obviously, but it's more so, at least from my experience, about the stories that you're telling, and it's just like the average American's music. You know what I mean? It's like it's our lives being put in a musical form. And I guess there's a little bit of that in all genres, but it's usually not too overproduced. You know, it's honest, it's extremely honest. And the instrumentation is amazing, like across the board. Some of the things that you hear in country, Americana, bluegrass, Southern rock, like it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it defies like borders of, you know, like where you're from. I think it's the funniest thing because I did some press for some like UK based platforms and some German based platforms. And it's just so cool to me that there's a country music scene in those countries, because you wouldn't think about that if you're narrow-minded musically. But I mean, again, it's a state of mind, not a
Right.
location thing.
Oh, the UK has a big country audience as well as, and Australia does too.
Yeah.
They've got the what is that? The O2 festival that they do in the UK, which is a huge country music festival. Then they have one in Australia, and um, there's a couple other countries. A friend of mine she's getting ready to go over there in October, um, in I think Belgium, Denmark, places
Yeah.
like that. And this is her second time going.
That's so cool. Yeah, I know they do C to C out there, I think.
Yeah, the C to
Like,
C. Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, people love that out there. They absolutely love that. And then also in Ireland, they have that big songwriting festival as well that a lot of country artists go out to. So it's
Right.
like you never know. Like it doesn't have anything to do with location. Obviously, Nashville helps, but
Yeah, yeah. I've got to actually have a friend that's signed to Sony Music UK. He's from Georgia.
that's so cool.
So I'm like, hey, man, whatever gets you where you want to be in your life, that's
I mean,
that's awesome.
I
So
meet these people all the time that are like, well, I didn't make it in the United States, but like I'm really famous in Sweden. I was like, that's so cool. You know what? If that's your
Exactly.
thing, that's your thing. I love it.
Right. Hey, success is whatever you want it to be, whether it's home
Exactly.
or abroad, success
Exactly.
is subjective.
Yeah.
So, Sam, how can they find you? Is on social media? Is it all Sam Cary Music?
Yeah, it's all Sam Cary music. My last name is spelled Cary. Really simple. No extra R's, no extra E's, no K's. Cary. So Sam Cary music. That's my website, my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of it.
Awesome. So they can go check that out, and then of course on all the streaming platforms, you can search
Sam Cary.
Sam Cary
Yeah.
and find all this great music. And then coming up in a couple of weeks, the album's going to be out, and I'm going to be trolling your website every day for those vinyls because as soon as they hit,
Oh yes, I'll send
I'm
you an
ordering one of those.
email.
I'm telling you. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad that we finally got to get together and have the chat. And thank you for coming on. And
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally got it to work out.
you're so welcome. Like I said, you were one of those that I just had to have on, and I'm glad that I reached out and was able to do that.
I
And
appreciate
I'm
it.
like I'm so excited to see where your career goes.
Thank you.
I think you're going to go far, and I think you're going to do well.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And everyone that was watching too with the nice comments, I appreciate those too. And hopefully I'll get to talk to you again soon, and I'll send you an email about those vinyls for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do that, and I'll make sure I get on it. So Sam Cary, be sure to check her out. Coming up on Thursday night. Let me check and see here. This is Thursday night. What am I talking about? Ran together. Coming up on Monday night, we have Callie Twisselman on, and then we got a special Tuesday night edition of Before Nashville. So next week we'll have 3 shows, so be sure to tune those in. You can find us on YouTube and on Facebook. It's all recorded and saved right there. And then the audio is eventually put up on our streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. It just a busy time of the year, and it's taken me some time, so I've kind of fallen behind, but bear with me. They'll be up there. That way you can listen in the car. That's the best way to listen right there. So love you all. You have a great night, and we will talk again soon.
Bye, guys.